Hi everyone, Daniel here. Hope you're doing really good today. Um, we are going to take a look at two emails and one comment, and a little bit of a common thread here has is some I stumbled there because I actually just this very second got a reply from one of the people that I'm going to make a reply to. I just saw it pop up, but anyway, I was going to say. Desperation seems to be today's theme, and without saying anything further than that, I'm just gonna start with one of the emails here from Christine. And before I do, as I often want to point out, nothing here is any medical advice or specific advice to anyone. Just general thoughts and comments, and everyone listening here have to decide upon yourself if what I talk about here applies to you. So, with that said, I got this email one day ago from Christine. So I'm going to read it. Hi, Daniel. My name is Christine, and I just recently discovered your podcast/YouTube channel while on my constant search for answers to my insomnia. I'm 35 years old and mom of two. I've been suffering on and off with sleep anxiety for about 5 years now. It all started after I had my daughter and suffered from postpartum depression/anxiety. I started to develop mild insomnia symptoms after giving birth, but then it just got worse and worse over the years. I've seen a number of psychiatrists, therapists, and from what I've learned, it is that I don't necessarily have a problem actually sleeping. I just have anxiety about it, which leads to many sleepless nights. I can sleep, and my body knows how to sleep. I want to believe. My insomnia got better throughout the years with help of some medication, but I can't say I've ever fully recovered. I find myself avoiding many social events, planning trips, enjoying life due to this chronic insomnia. The main reason I decided to reach out to you is that recently I had a bad trigger because my husband started a new job. He now wakes up at 4:30 a.m. for work, which has completely thrown me off because I now anticipate him being awake around that time, which leads me to being awake. I can never fall asleep after that time and manifested into full-on sleep anxiety again. I feel like I will never sleep normally again. I've also reached out to Martin Reed regarding CBTI training because I'm just ready to make a real difference in my life regarding this debilitating anxiety. I find myself living my life where this anxiety controls me and it's becoming way too exhausting. I'm hoping you can help me with some advice and insights whether or not you think I can be helped. I'm pretty much desperate at this point, and I know you're the sleep expert. I feel like giving up, but I don't want to because my girls need me to be happy and present. I'm constantly irritable and on the verge of tears because of my sleep issues. I can't focus on the positive things in life because I'm crippled by this anxiety. Thanks so much. Um, Christine, I very sorry to hear all this, of course, but I want to start right off the bat with saying, like, yes, absolutely, there's hope. And there's no question in my mind that you can sleep much better and get past insomnia. And a few things. First of all, I think what you've heard is pretty much correct, meaning you can sleep, and it's like anxiety about it that leads to sleeplessness. Yes, and this is a way of describing what we call psychophysiologic insomnia, which, to be honest with you, is when we say somebody has insomnia, we typically mean that type of insomnia, which in a nutshell is caused by this. Somebody has maybe a little bit of tendency towards insomnia but is doing okay. Something happens that triggers bad insomnia, and then you start being worried about not being able to sleep. Some people try to do things to make themselves sleep, which creates more anxiety because it doesn't work, or it works or you think it works and then it doesn't work, and then it just kind of snowballs after that, and then you have like chronic insomnia. But a good thing, something I always try to bring out the positive things, and one of them is that you've identified that sleep anxiety is the culprit, which gives you a foundation to build upon, versus those people who are like just don't understand why they have insomnia and think it is um, some type of you know sleep switch is broken in the brain, or there's a neurotransmitter abnormality, or some they're looking for a reason for it. For people that are at that stage, it takes longer. But when you get to a point where you're like, yes, I know that is kind of the worry, the anxiety that is driving it, that's a good starting point. Another thing that's good is that, although you haven't slept well in many years, there has, there's been times where it was better, times where it was worse, which I think puts you in a better spot than somebody that has like had terrible insomnia for like 20 years. That makes it harder. Like the kind of on and off pattern that you've had, I think it makes it a little bit more, how should I put it, the likelihood of you recovering relatively quickly is greater than for somebody who's had more constant severe problems. Then when I say relatively quickly, I'm not thinking about days, more like weeks to months. I think it's always good to have that perspective in mind. Um, now, I wanted to say this, that I think when somebody is in kind of a desperate situation, like the good thing with that is that it makes you do stuff. Like in your case, you looked around and you found my channel, and I think that's really good because what I talk about CBTI is really effective. And whether you you spend time looking at this channel, whether you um, work with Martin Reed, whether you find an insomnia specialist nearby, or whatever you do, I'm hopeful that you'll pursue something that is CBTI based, because I really believe in that. And so that's the good point of the desperation, that you've found this. Now, one thing I want to add to that though is the following: that when it comes to insomnia, oftentimes trying to make changes when things are really, really bad may actually not be the best. If somebody is like generally not having, let's say somebody has a trouble sleeping, and then suddenly goes into this, like, for 3 nights they have hardly slept at all. If you try to, let's say you start, like, I'm going to start CBTI now in this like really terrible part of your insomnia, that makes it really hard, because the fact that you're trying to make a change, it kind of highlights the fact that you have a problem. And if that problem is really, really strong, then it's difficult. It's almost like what you're trying to do to help becomes reinforces the insomnia and highlights how bad it is. So if the kind of bad stretch you've been in now, it has been going on for for weeks, then it's time to start CBTI. I would say. But if it's more like it's like the last few days have been terrible, then it's probably better to like wait a little bit until you get towards more of a baseline and then start working. Like if you start working when you're more close to baseline, I think that generally speaking is better. I hope this made sense. It's a little bit hard to explain, but I hope that makes sense. It's kind of similar to this one. When somebody is starting CBTI and they're doing pretty good, and then they have like 2 nights where things are completely off, they don't sleep good at all. If they then start trying to make changes, then they get into this like chasing their own tail again, versus if you try to like not make any changes, then the whole thing passes. So it's similar to that. I hope this is helpful, Christine, and there's always hope. Particularly consider this: like, many people have not tried the most effective way to treat insomnia, which is CBTI. So as long as you haven't tried that, and then when I say try that, I mean like good quality CBTI that you would get from Martin Reed or somebody that's really knowledgeable. If somebody has not tried good CBTI and committed to it, then there is tons of hope. Okay, that said, let's move on to let's do this other email. Where did it go? Here, I'm just going to back up, and this is from Tony. And this email came in 14 hours ago. Hello, sir. I hope this message finds you well. I found your YouTube channel today and immediately subscribed. You provide good quality content on sleep issues. Thank you for doing this. Thank you, Tony, for the support. However, I also want to contact you because I'm in a very desperate situation. I'll cut the story short so that I won't take too much time. Here's a bullet point about me. Had sleep issues for over 14 years. Developed delayed sleep phase syndrome when I was young. Delayed sleep phase syndrome devolved into what's known as non-24 sleep-wake disorder. got fat. Now I have severe sleep apnea. I sleep with a CPAP machine. Anxiety, depression, panic attacks have been a byproduct of my sleep issues. But sir, I have remained strong so far. I have managed to feel okay with all these sleep issues. I am content. However, something happened 2 years ago. One night, I went to sleep and woke up after 5 hours and couldn't go back to sleep. All right, that's pretty normal. Sometimes it happens, but for the next 5 days or so, the same thing happened. I would spontaneously wake up after 5 hours. That's when I got panic attacks for the first time in my life. That was 2 years ago. And ever since then, I have not been able to have a full interrupted night's sleep. This year, it's going to be 3 years. For every night I sleep, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, this has been happening. There hasn't been a single time where I had a full interrupted sleep. I visited a neurologist that specializes in sleep disorders. She's helping me with non-24 disorder. However, she has no idea about my short sleep issue. My fingers are bleeding from Googling and searching for a cure. No, in fact, all I want at this point is a simple diagnosis. I do not even know why this is happening. I heard this is called sleep maintenance insomnia, question mark. Anyways, I've tried everything for sleep hygiene. I've tried exercise. I've tried meditations. I've done every rule in the sleep hygiene book there is. Please, sir, I'm desperate. Even if you don't have the answer, if you know someone else who does have the answer, let me know, please. Or if there's someone who has had a success story. Thank you for taking your time to read the message. I wish you the best and good luck with your YouTube channel. Please keep it up. Tony, again, sorry to hear this happening, obviously. And there's a couple of things I'm thinking about here. I would say there are, when it comes to insomnia, and insomnia, by the way I use the word is just somebody has a hard time falling asleep or staying asleep. That's insomnia. What you mentioned here, sleep maintenance insomnia, is when somebody has a hard time maintaining sleep. It's fragmented. They wake up multiple times or wake up and can't fall back asleep again. The thing is that for everyone that has insomnia, the experience is unique. It's very different from everyone. In your case, you have these layers of delayed sleep syndrome or non-24-hour sleep disorder, sleep apnea, anxiety, depression. All that are layered in here. They affect, how your sleep, of course, your insomnia. But from the outside perspective, from somebody like myself that takes care of a lot of people with insomnia, you see patterns, and one kind of pattern I feel like I read out of this is the one where there is a trigger, and then the person. So when I say trigger, let me take a step back. And this the way chronic insomnia often develops is the following. That, and by the way, I talked about this a little bit just before in the answer to Christine, but someone has a hard time sleeping, maybe a little bit at baseline, but they're doing okay, kind of like you were. Like you said, I have remained strong so far despite everything. You were doing okay, and now then there's a trigger, and sometimes that's unknown. For some reason, somebody just sleeps very poorly or very little, and then that person may say that was odd, but doesn't think more about it. Then it happens again and again, and then when it happens like a couple of times, then that person's like, okay, I got it. This is a problem. I can't sleep, and I have to try to do something about it. And then this person may try some melatonin. That didn't help. Okay, so now they're like, this is a real problem. That didn't help. And then like, I'm going to wear a sleep mask. And then they say, well, that seemed to help, or did it? They're not quite sure, but they continue doing that. But then they also decide to use a noise canceling machine, and that didn't work. And what I'm saying is, like, the more things you try to kind of make yourself sleep better, the more attention insomnia gets, the more preoccupied you get, and then you get into this like vicious cycle. You can't sleep, you try this thing, doesn't work, you try this other thing, makes it worse, and suddenly you're in like a deep rabbit hole of like just complete confusion. You have no clue what's going on, and nothing works. And I read out from this, and I want to say this, that something that is very, very common is that the person that has insomnia feels that it is very, very unusual and unique. And that can be a problem, because if somebody perceives their problem as like really, really unusual, then they may not be open to thinking that what works for others will work for them. They will be looking for a very unusual and special situation because they feel they have a very unusual case of insomnia. So for really the majority of people, I hate to say like everyone, because maybe there are exceptions, but I say like, for 99.8%, a good first step is to say, to consider at least that maybe I have a more typical insomnia. Maybe I have this psychophysiological insomnia, which is driven by anxiety and hyperarousal, etc. And that usually is a good foundation. And then you can build upon that. And because then you can start believing that what works for others will work for me. And so that was, I felt like, an important comment here. And going back to kind of what I said before, you see right here, I've tried everything: sleep hygiene, I've tried exercise, I've tried meditations, I've done every rule in sleep hygiene book. There's what this is called sleep efforts. These are things we do to try to produce sleep. Sleep efforts always backfire. The more we try to produce sleep, the less of it we get. So what should somebody like yourself do, Tony? Well, I think you should do CBTI. I know people might be like tired of me saying this, but I say it because I believe it. That this thing called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia is like part explaining, understanding what insomnia is and learning about it, and part like behavioral modifications where you have a certain like sleep window, you get up very consistently, you don't go to bed before this time, etc. That works really, really well. And again, there are some great books out there, like The Effortless Sleep Method by Sasha Stevens. There's Say Goodnight to Insomnia by Greg Jacobs. There is my colleague Martin Reed. There is the app I'm working on, Bedtime with the Y, which is available for Apple. And there are local CBTI experts, and just to name a few good places to start. Okay, so Christine, Tony, like any follow-up questions, please send them to me, and I'll be happy to include an answer in another episode. And then finally, a comment from 18 hours ago, and this is a comment to Talking Insomnia number 4. And I'm going to read this comment. Hi, Daniel. Been watching your videos for a while. I'm suffering and frustrated by my insomnia. It all started April this year, when I was having this weird sleep pattern of feeling awake while I was sleeping, which made me think I was not sleeping deep. I was doing many night shifts in the last year, and I used to sleep during the day for a whole year from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. It was horrible. When I developed the feeling of having insomnia, it started to get worse. At the end of May, there was one day which I did not sleep at all. I panicked. I went to the doctor, who prescribed me something that I did not take longer than 4 days due to getting high heart pulse. I had bromazepam, a benzodiazepine, at the house, which my uncle, who's a doctor, gave me a year ago to use only when necessary when I got too much anxiety. I used it. With 3 milligrams each night, it helped. Then by the end of June, I started to lower the dose to 1.5 milligrams and eventually stopped taking it. The whole time, the whole of June and July, I was sleeping like at 12 midnight until 9 a.m. I was still feeling that my sleep was not deep and was getting woken up like 5 times each night. But generally, I don't feel tired like I used to be. My insomnia has kicked in again this week. I sometimes get those myoclonus when trying to sleep through, though not every night. I have this terrible habit of unintentionally pulling myself back off sleep when starting to fall asleep, and I'm feeling desperate, tired, and very angry at myself again. That is why I searched about spontaneous fatal insomnia. I need your guidance and advice. Again, trying to stay on the positive side of things. I think this started April this year. May, June, July, about 3 to 4 months. You know what? That's in like insomnia world, it's not a long time. And generally speaking, having had insomnia for a short amount of time, generally speaking, it makes it more likely that you can overcome it. faster. And when I say fast, I'm not talking about like a day or 2 days. I'm talking about like maybe more like weeks rather than months, perhaps. But just want to mention that because I think that is something that is in your favor. And also, when I read here, like June and July, I was sleeping like midnight until 9 a.m. I was still feeling like my sleep was not deep, and I was getting my spontaneous thought there is like, that's about 9 hours. Most adults need to sleep. You always hear you should sleep 8 hours, but in fact, when you look at studies, people think they sleep 7 hours. When you objectively check them, most people sleep about 6 hours, really, actually, about 6 hours. So, you know, spending less time in bed is a key, like, CBTI technique. And it may sound like counterintuitive because you think, like, I'm not getting enough sleep. I should, of course, spend more time in bed so I at least have the opportunity to sleep more. In fact, the opposite is much more effective when you have a kind of like you wake up the same time every morning and you go to bed, let's say 7 hours before that or 6.5 hours before that, something like that. So you have a sleep window, you have an opportunity to sleep for maybe 6.5, 7 hours. Well, guess what happens? Like you get up early, you spend the whole day like awake and alert, and then you have a strong sleep drive, like you really need to sleep, and that puts you into that deep sleep that you typically don't get if you're spending too much time in bed. And when I say too much time, that's true when you have insomnia. But once you've gotten past it, when you're like no longer worried, you're doing fine, then you can do whatever you want. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. And the second thing was um, it, something here often is how people are like have insomnia and also notice that they have like twitches and tingling and like and these like things that happen just as they're about to fall asleep. They jerk awake or have like hear things or like you know things. A lot of weird things can happen like at bedtime or as you're transitioning to sleep, and that is really caused by hyperarousal. And hyperarousal is the state when you're kind of worried, preoccupied, a little bit anxious. You may not even feel it. You may feel like everything's normal, but then you have these like jerks and tinglings and like and it's good to know that again, it's not a medical device. Like you have to, if you're worried about your health, you have to see your doctor. But generally, when that happens in the context of insomnia, it's due to hyperarousal. And when somebody starts working on their insomnia, those things tend to go away. And just like insomnia itself, like the more attention you pay to it, the worse it gets. Like these jerkings and myoclonus and things like that, typically like the more attention they get, the worse they get. And so I think, again, for the third time today, the best thing to do is to explore cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. There's tons of it in my channel. Like you can start with episode 1 and learn how to do it. You can find books, find a coach, find a psychologist, find anybody really that's interested in CBTI can really help. All right. So this said, hope Christine, Tony, and I'm going to call you Derik, that this was helpful, and any follow-up questions, do let me know, and I will be back here. Maybe I'll post something more today. If not, then tomorrow. Okay, until then, take it easy, everyone. Bye-bye.